I love all the options Zoom gives me to bail out. Like, this is being recorded. This is being live streamed. Do you want to leave?
Yes, and we are now being live streamed. Welcome,
yes,
everyone.
Live.
Today we are going to be covering how to elevate your authenticity. Thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday, wherever you are in the world, if you're in the East Coast, West Coast, or across the ocean. We really appreciate you being here. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes for a few more people to show up. If you would like, we would love to have you come up here on camera and join us for this conversation as well. This is a conversation for us. It's not just a bunch of people having a conversation as you listen. So we'd love for you to interact with us if you're in a place to do so.
Welcome, guys. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you saw when I was writing the description for the event, I was like, it's not a webinar. It's not a seminar. And I realized how burnt out I was on talking heads. And so that's something we're really conscientious of, is not being the talking head that, you know, when we look out, we see our eyes glazed over and there's no engagement or dialogue. So rest assured, we steer clear of that. And I mean, I don't want that myself. So we'll get moving in just a second.
As you're coming in, we'd love for you to type in the chat, where in the world are you? I know I'm in the northeast part of the United States.
That's pretty vague. Where are you, Michael? Really?
I'm in New Hampshire, just outside of Manchester.
Okay, New Hampshire. Lisa, what about you?
I'm in Santa Cruz, California, but I was born and raised in San Francisco.
Okay. I am just north of Atlanta in Georgia, and I'm 30 miles outside of the city, but I drive by cows and chickens on my way in. So horses too, lots of horses and deer.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful spot.
I work on campus at UC Santa Cruz, and we have deer, turkeys, squirrels, ravens, the occasional rabbit. We have lizards. It's not every day that I get to tell my boss, I'm sorry I'm a little late. There were turkeys in the road, but it is absolutely understood that the turkeys have the right of way.
See, that's what I call diversity. I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the next wave in diversity, equity, and inclusion, the animal kingdom too, right?
It would be nice. I mean, I will tell you, everyone comes in with a smile on their face, and no matter how crazy the day might have been, you leave and you see nature just like right there.
Yes.
You smile.
Yes, it
Now,
matters.
when you go out to the parking lot and find a turkey attacking your hubcaps, maybe that's less enthralling, but
that's so funny. I love it.
It is. It's a great testimony to how much nature and the environment really does play into our wellness. I feel like a lot of people did not recognize that until they get into this kind of environment. Yeah. And I tend to be one of the people, I get home, my butt hits the couch, I'm done sort of people. So I like that I can get that nature and that outside influence in my regular routine.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm definitely like that. So if I don't have time outside and in the sun and in nature, I go a little crazy. And I lived in urban areas for 15, 20 years. And then at one time I was done. So, okay, I think we're going to get started, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect timing. Okay, guys, thank you for humoring our conversation. And good morning, good afternoon. It's beautiful to see you.
So today, as the title of this session is, we are talking about authenticity. So I know we have a couple people in the audience, and we want to kind of start off this by asking, what is your definition of authenticity? And for those of you in the audience, we'd love if you want to type that out, or if you want to raise your hand, we'll actually bring you up in a moment. But I want to start off with Lisa, and kind of how do you define authenticity for you?
Thank you, Michael. For me, authenticity is finding, recognizing, and becoming your true inner self. And many of us maybe don't think about that. But if we think about all the times, particularly in childhood, that we are told what to say, what to do, where to be, what to wear, how to act, what not to do, what not to say, so much of our developing personality gets quashed just as a matter of the societal norm, that it can be a strong experience to come out of that and suddenly realize, wait, I'm not a ribbons and curls little girl. I want to wear jeans and drive trucks and work with tools, or whatever that difference might be from what you were allowed in your formative years. And I believe it's not until we recognize and find that true, authentic inner self that we start to thrive, and that we start to really be able to connect with people, because we're not keeping up a facade or an expectation that is sucking our energy to do so.
Got it. Thank you for that clarity. And I know, like I said, if you have something that you want to add to this, we want this to be a conversation. So if you want to come up and give us your definition of that, Catherine, did you have an idea to share with us around authenticity?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us here. Appreciate that. Suzanne, what about you? How would you define authenticity?
I think Lisa hit several actually really good points. But when I think about authenticity, first of all, yes, to our entire lives being sent a plethora of messages on who we should be, how we should show up, what we should say, think, how we should dress, how we should act, at what stage in our life we should follow certain norms, who we should be. But I think now more than ever in this context where we are living in a hybrid world where we have an actual presence and existence online in addition to in real life. I think the conversation of authenticity needs to be elevated to the next level, where we're really looking at how we're showing up and whether or not we're aligned. And Lisa spoke to this as well, in saying, like, are you really who you feel you are inside? Is that what the world sees? How are you showing up? And right now, I think we've all lived through a tough time when it comes to authenticity, where not everybody's opinions or beliefs were actually welcome in the social space. And we have to be careful, guys. We have to be really careful, because those controls and limits we put on, others, they actually hurt us just as much. So we know that when you are authentic, you are, I believe that we all emit energy, and I believe our vibration is highest when we are speaking our truth, when we are stepping forward and speaking our beliefs about who we are. So for me, this is a super important conversation to have. And in my business, helping people develop a really powerful online brand, authenticity is key. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Suzanne. So we had an opportunity to kind of introduce this idea, but now I'd like to introduce who we have speaking today. So Suzanne and I have been doing this summit. I believe that this is our 18th, 19th, 20th. I think we're up to 20 now of these mindset summits. We like to have this as a conversation where we can bring people together and have some of these deeper conversations. My name is Michael Dankloffs. I have a coaching business that is called Elevate Your Best. And I too kind of come from that authentic space that Suzanne was just referring to. For me, it's about being a life vision outfitter, helping people find what their vision is for their life, and then supporting them to take the steps in order to create that. And that has really resonated with Suzanne and I to kind of move this forward so we can have these deeper conversations. Suzanne, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. So I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for sharing your time with us. That's valuable, and we know that, and we're not going to waste it. So my background really is in communications and helping people come together to have powerful conversations. I have a background in corporate communications, but probably more importantly, in really in-person communications. I'm a mediator, I'm a facilitator, and I love dialogues that change lives. So I have a communications business as well, where I, as I mentioned, help people and small and medium-sized businesses show up powerfully online. I look at their brand, I look at their messaging, and make sure that these are powerful and aligned. So that's a little bit of my background. And Lisa's joining us here. We're happy to have her. Would you like to say a few words to say hi to everyone?
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you and Michael for inviting me back again. It's great to be with you guys on the 20th episode special. My name is Lisa, and I use the pronouns she and they. I have known Michael for about 20 years now, and in recent years, in fact, right before COVID, I was starting up my own presentation coaching business. And what that goal is similar to Suzanne, help people express their best self, not just online, but on paper and in person. My college education was English and journalism. I've also done a lot of public speaking, including Toastmasters International, where I achieved Distinguished Toastmaster. And the short explanation of that is that's basically the Eagle Scout of public speaking. Very few people know what it is, but the people who do recognize how much goes into that. And self-confessed grammar nerd, self-confessed bookworm, which means I know thousands of words and have no idea how to pronounce them. So thank you, Internet. And when Michael approached me about speaking at today's summit on authenticity, it really resonated with me. So I am really glad to be here and be part of that conversation.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Lisa, on this conversation. So you just kind of mentioned that it kind of leads us into the next space that we're going to go, but I'm going to give kind of a preview of what we're going to be talking about today. So we are going to be talking about kind of, why is authenticity important? We're also going to be talking about some of the delineation and couple of the pet peeves that we have around this word called authenticity that seems to be slung around as often as it is. We're also going to be talking about the idea of, the threats that are possible when you are being authentic, but also then the flip side of that, the opportunities. And lastly, we're going to be wrapping up with a couple of tools that we think can be really helpful for moving towards more integrity and authenticity in your life. So Lisa, you kind of talked about that this subject is important. So why do you think that authenticity is so important now more than ever?
I think one of the biggest shifts in human evolution and interaction is this thing called social media. It's changed our lives in so many ways, but the one I want to focus on today is that anyone with a smart device and an internet connection can say anything they like to anyone, anywhere. And on the bright side, this means grandmothers get to see pictures of their kids. I got to see videos of my nephew's band concerts in Illinois. And then we have things like trolling, which did not exist 20 years ago. Cyberbullying did not exist 20 years ago. Fat shaming was not a word 20 years ago. Body shaming was not a word. And people now feel like from behind a keyboard, there are no boundaries and they can say whatever they want. They can share whatever is on their mind. And so many people do this from that dark, negative, ugly place. And I firmly believe what I was told in childhood and didn't believe, that bullies are in essence cowards. They are coming from a point of fear, of trauma, of insecurity, of emotional damage. And the only way they know how to protect themselves and avoid facing what they're dealing with inside is to spit all that outward. So we've got people typing things on the internet that no one would ever walk up to Lizzo in person and say, oh my God, I can't believe you're wearing that. No one would walk up to President Biden and say, oh my God, you look like you're dying. You know, we would never, I would hope, never say these things in person to each other. But when we have that security and protection and anonymity of being behind a screen on the other side of the keyboard, people are just letting it fly. And I feel like that is doing so much damage to people. And the more that we can tap into our authentic selves and find who we want to be and share that with the world, there's automatically less negativity. There's often a lot of healing, a lot of what people call shadow work that may come with finding your authentic self. But once you tap into it, you become a happier person. It's liberating. When you drop the charades and the facades and the masks and the mimicry that we think we have to put on to fit in and succeed in our world, it is so freeing. And after a little bit of living your authentic self, you start realizing how exhausting living another self is and how much energy it drains out of you trying to be who you think the world wants to see.
That's really powerful in that space. And I also hear this other part in that too, is when we're putting stuff out in order to get a reaction from people, and it's not what we truly think, that clickbaiting, that, you know, the idea of trolling really is, I need attention right now, so I'm going to say whatever it's going to take to get attention if I think it or not. It can be a really this place of, I need attention rather than I need to get my message out. So I can see, you know, both of those being super effective and not at the same time. You know, you're getting that attention, but is that really the attention you want? You're acting like a spoiled child screaming just to get attention. So Suzanne, for you, why is authenticity, because I know that this is a very central thing that you care about, why is it important for you now that this is cultivated more?
I think so many of us don't feel really seen. We don't feel really heard. And I think we were gifted this life for a reason. I think each one of us has our own magic. And as you can tell, I believe in you. I believe in people. I believe in your potential. And I believe each one of us has our own authentic voice, our own proprietary, unique way of thinking, of feeling, of being, that is a mass contribution to this world. And, you know, shame on us that we allow the forces of nature, whatever those negative messages are, to quiet us and to prevent us from either discovering that voice and letting it be heard. So for me, I see so many clients that come to me and their presence is super timid and they're playing it small. And what they're really looking for is that validation. Am I really who I think I am? And the answer is always yes. You are that big. You are that bold. You are that capable. And so for me, I've always been about the power of connection, of unleashing people to their potential. And I think critical in doing so is finding our authentic voice. And I see so many people showing up online, and like I said, they're playing it safe. And what Lisa alluded to before is so true, that by playing it safe, we actually fail to attract the exact tribe that we're looking for. We fail to resonate because our message isn't from the heart. It doesn't send out that powerful vibration that others can feel. And when I speak with meaning, when I speak with the authority invested in my beliefs, I know everyone out there can almost touch exactly what I feel. So this is about unleashing your power, not to go old Tony Robbins, but this is really about helping people break free of a lot of the constructs that we've allowed to prevent us from learning to authentically speak.
Absolutely. I know one of the things when we were preparing for this too that we had talked about is, I know that we're taking a lot of pot shots at social media right now. But I think it's, anytime we talk about marketing or advertising or anything from that spaces, that so often in those public spaces, we're sharing all the highlight reel, all the great things that are going on, or we're repeating what other people are saying, or we're curating other people's content rather than creating our own. And I think that we have this opportunity to be authentic in what we say, that we're sharing our message. I know that in the Lifebook community, we have a tendency to add quotes to our book and use those quotes on a regular basis. And many times it's other people's quotes, which is great wisdom. But at what point do we start using our own? Mm-hmm. When do we start sharing our own personal wisdom? Because that is how we continue relationships that are at that deeper level, when we're sharing our experience.
Yes, Michael, that's one of my points. My fine people, look, you can be a curator, right? That's the master of everyone else's, contribution. And that's beautiful to be a curator, because you're uniquely putting together things that really help resonate how you're really deeply feeling. But make no mistake, we were all sent here to be creators. And the path to authenticity is the path of the creator. That's the path of finding your voice. That's the path of really relying on your wisdom, your insight, and everything that's been uniquely invested in you. You have it. You have it. You have it. I love bringing it out in people. And it's one of the gifts that I have in my communications business, because we are so full of potential. So I love it. Yes, be a creator.
Mm-hmm. So I want to have you, use one of the reactions in here or type in the chat. And I want to know from you, we've got this idea of, creating and curating, but I want to shift gears a little bit, because like I said, as in the intro, is we have a lot of people that throw some of these words around, and it's one of, I know, my pet peeves, that when somebody says, I'm going to be really vulnerable right now, and then they go into this story, and it's like, I'm flipping this switch on you to make you feel vulnerable. Have you ever seen anybody either online or even in person when it looks like they're putting on the mask in order to manipulate you into a particular place? And that's kind of this space of, is that being authentic? Are you actually being vulnerable if you're calling it out? It's like this idea of, hey, you should trust me. Lisa, have you run into that?
Yeah. vulnerable is, I don't want to call it a buzzword, but it's definitely a word that has gained more recognition and misunderstanding. We were talking in the prep sessions for today that authenticity is not synonymous with vulnerability. Neither are the two mutually exclusive. It's much more complex than a black-white system. But I've discovered in recent years that about the only time I use the V word is with my closest friends. And it's always when, for whatever reason, I'm at a really touchy point, upset, stressed, freaked out, worried, something's really built up my emotions, usually towards the negative side. And I'll tell people I'm really vulnerable tonight. And it's their way of knowing that, like, okay, at any minute, Lisa could start crying from absolutely nothing we did. And I know they are there for me. I know they will support me. I know they can handle that. But especially when it's like we're getting together for dinner and a movie, and I'm coming into this fun occasion in a not really steady space, it's just sort of my way of giving them a heads up that, like, hey, just here's where I am. And I know I trust you to welcome me as I am. And 9.5 out of 10 times, I come down from that negative spot and everything is wonderful. But that other 0.5, when I need to fall apart, I know I can fall apart with them and they will help put me back together again, or they will just hold me while I do what I need to do. And that's a kind of vulnerability that for me is safe and authentic. I think what Michael was saying is like making a show of it and turning it into a presentation. It's sort of like starting a sentence with no offense, but don't take this personally. And it automatically puts us on our guard of like, okay, let's hear it. What do you got?
Gotcha. I know that you had mentioned that you've worked with the Toastmasters quite a bit. How has the concepts around being authentic in your presentations and at the same time curbing that vulnerability space really affected how you've been able to move forward and actually do as well as you did in that organization?
One of the things I discovered about Toastmasters early on was, there are a whole lot of nerds like me out in this world. And the other thing I realized was this was a space where I could bring my sense of humor, my random thoughts, my high, loud, out there energy, and it could be appreciated and it could be recognized as a talent, as opposed to the Lisa talks too much in class. Lisa won class clown in the popularity poll. Why is that even a category? But it was the time, and I was almost 30 when I joined Toastmasters. And it was this space where I suddenly discovered that who I really felt I was could finally be a positive thing. And as I developed these talents and learned how to take that sense of humor and that energy and, I don't know, is modulate the word I want, handle it appropriately and temper it and bring it up and bring it down, depending on the situation, the context, the audience, I also found it much easier to tap into the other aspects of myself. I did a speech that I had trouble getting through without crying. I had people in the room in tears, which I had never done before. And this was my 10th speech. So these people had seen a lot of the fun, energetic, humorous, nerdy Lisa. And now suddenly they're seeing this vulnerable, fragile, emotional side. And what struck me that day was one of my best friends was my evaluator. And he came over and he shook my hand in front of everyone and said, "Thank you. Thank you for trusting us with this side of you and for sharing that part of you. I feel honored to have been in this room today. And that has stuck with me now for almost 10 years. And I still look back on almost 20 years. I can't do math. But that was a huge moment in recognizing how important authenticity is and how it lets us connect with others in ways we never would have otherwise.
Yes, guys. Forgive me, Lisa. I want to make sure you're paying attention to what she just said, because it's critical for every one of you that's in the professional space, right? That this became not only a skill, she was really talking about a skill and exploring this kind of agility that she was developing, this facility that she could really utilize and leverage while still at the same time being true to her content, being authentic in her delivery. And it is possible to do both, but not everyone does it well. And I hope you also recognize that as she was talking, she was really telling us how her world opened up to really find her tribe. Because by being her authentic self and having the courage, and remember, these are also things that she talked about, there was safety there, but she took risks and she had the courage to take these steps. So those are important factors for you who are trying to be authentic in any space. So, but it wasn't until she found her voice and was authentic that she attracted her tribe. And that is the biggest takeaway today so far I think we have. I mean, other than you are who you think you are, you have the potential that you really hoped you had, you do. And then here's the next part of it. You're going to attract a tremendous tribe, the right tribe, your tribe, by stepping into that authentic space. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know that this, I hate to kind of be the rain on this parade, though, is that, as we're kind of talking about this, is that there is risk that's necessary here. And there is definite real and sometimes present threat when we actually share fully who we are. And I know I certainly, dealt with that in my life as well, is that there's this idea of rejection, which is a very real thing. If we go back to, how our brains react to this idea of rejection, it hurts. And it can get to the point where we react in this way of, I'm not going to be able to survive if I'm not part of a tribe. And in this day and age, it can be very overwhelming not to find your people, not to actually get in that space. And I know I personally kind of got into that space. I got, for me, into this place where it was, I almost feel like I lost my humanness. I became more automated in how I was doing things. It was kind of because partly as a response to rejection, I think. This is mostly in the online spaces. It's like no after no after no after no after no of trying to connect with people. And then it just, for me, became less about the person and kind of got into the space we talked about where, it's a name on a screen there, and forgot that there's a person on the other side, that there is a soul that you're interacting with at this point. And that got me into this really bad place for me. And the consequences were dire. And at that point, I dropped any sense for myself that I could be me, because I obviously made a choice that was so bad that it had major consequences. So I outsourced that authentic self. I let everyone else tell me who I was. And here's the tough part with that is I was more irritated. I was more frustrated. I was more angry on a regular basis because I wasn't being me. I was trying to be what everybody else thought me should be. And the threat of being something and have people judge you is present, yes. but how do I live with myself today, tomorrow, and the next day if I'm not being the best version of me?
Oh, yes.
And conformity, yes, when you're in a rural space, if you are in a wild space and you've got a tribe out in the middle of nowhere and you have to use each other to survive, I get it. In the first world right now, that is far less of a threat at this point because we have things like the internet and so many resources to connect with. But it is navigating this space. And it's even when, we're talking about businesses as well. And I know that a couple of people here have actually built kind of their businesses, and they're like, okay, but there's so many other people who are doing kind of what I'm doing. And Suzanne talked about, you have your own unique fingerprint signature on how you approach things. And there's going to be people who resonate with you for that. I know, at least in my business, I'm, in some ways struggling because finding that right tribe is where I'm working at right now, is who are the best people for me to work with? Who are the best people that I can serve? So Suzanne, have you ever had this space where the threat that would be there about being authentic was like felt and present?
The entire last 2 years, for sure, for me was a very big, it was a big deal, guys. I left a very big girl job to accomplish a mission in the natural health field, a different field, but one that I'm well equipped for. And through COVID and the mass censorship that was happening, my messages were actually being blocked. My voice was being silenced by actual social media companies. So that was definitely a threat. But my reaction to that threat was even greater, right? And it's how we choose to interpret everything that matters. It's the meaning that we attach to things that matter. The world can reject you, or the universe is redirecting you. It is our interpretation of what's happening that really matters. So for me, rather than feeling rejected, dejected, I understood my timeline was going to have to be different. And I understood that the universe was redirecting me to a time to really hone what I'm doing behind the scenes before I step forward in a very different space. It's also allowed me to connect better with people and really take time to practice. And guys, it is a practice your delivering your authentic voice. Lisa has been engaged in Toastmasters, which is the professional practice of finding your voice, right? It's a structured environment to do so. Michael and I have been doing it here as well, but I am no stranger to rejection, and I've shown up in spaces where I'm not welcome. I've been kicked out of cities, right? Oh, I've been deported from a country. So I am really good at facing rejection, I think. But what I have to be better at is speaking up anyway. Sometimes we get used to rejection. And sometimes we let that affect us in negative ways. And that's real stuff. We're human, right? But that doesn't mean that there aren't masses of people that need your authentic voice. It's just figuring out the how. It's just figuring out the right platform, the right time. It's not a matter of if, it's just how. And how is a practice. Lisa went through the practice. That's why she's here. That's why we love to have her here today, because she invested in the process. Yeah, sorry guys, it's a process. It's not like an automatic button. But we want to inspire you today to engage in that process. And also to just stop a second after something comes out of your mouth and you're like, I can't believe I said that. Or when you show up in a space and you think, this isn't who I am. These are all the signs. We have this internal GPS that really alerts us when we're out of alignment, when something's off, when we're not authentic. We know. We know, we know, we know. And this is about the courage to do the other crazy thing.
So a thought came to mind, and I appreciate kind of going really into that of what's possible. And I kind of wanted to go back to Lisa, as I know that you have talked about that you had this stint and you had all this growth inside of Toastmasters, which is great doing it in the context of Toastmasters. But how did that practice then translate into opportunities in your life outside of Toastmasters?
That's a great prompt, Michael. The main thing that came to the, what I call the outside adulty, not toasty world with me, because there's definitely a difference, was that becoming so comfortable with who I really am and that true voice of mine and the multiple tones of that voice, the funny, the witty, the inspirational, the nerdy, the emotional, is I found myself much more able to communicate honestly in all sorts of situations. I have bounced in and out of temp jobs for a long time. And I found that I was now able to speak up in a job interview. The job I currently have when I interviewed, and it's a permanent job, it's not a temp job, but one of the big things on the job description was attention to detail. And I told my boss and her supervisor who interviewed me, I said, I am not a strong detail person. If I can take notes and refer back to them and keep track of that, then yes, I can stay on top of it, but it does not all stay up here automatically. And 20 years ago, Lisa would have sat there and gone, oh yeah, absolutely. I need a job. Yes, of course I can do that. And to this day, I've been in this job now for 3 years, and all of my reviews have included, more attention to detail is needed. But my boss recognizes that I bring enough of everything else to the job, and I strive and continue to try with my weaker aspects. So it works, and she supports me, and we get along great. We make each other laugh. At least once a week, she tells me I'm crazy, and I've never argued with her. And that's something I couldn't have done if I had not found that authentic voice. It takes a lot of courage to tell someone who you are starting or hoping to start a relationship with, hey, by the way, I'm lacking one of the big things you're looking for. It's very much that opening myself up to rejection that Suzanne was talking about. And, it was a question, it was a choice. Do I bullshit this, or do I speak up and trust that whatever comes out of that is the right one? And I'm grateful that my boss took me, weak points and all, and that she still works with me and strives to help me keep improving.
Got it. I love that example. And it is something that is really relevant to, in our personal relationships and our professional relationships, is saying, yes, I'm strong here and I'm weak here. That does take a lot of courage. And I think that so often we put out just what we're strong in. And I'm a big believer in the idea that all of us have our own strengths. We put our points in one particular area of our life where we have a specialty, where we have a talent, where we have a strength. And that's going to be offset by other people who put their points, or they've got their strengths and their talents and their energy in somewhere else. And we then balance each other out. And having people on a team, especially in a team environment, that you're going to keep it balanced. That's how we move forward. Is we can't have all the hard chargers out there. That's not how everything gets done. We need some of those deep thinkers that can actually back up the hard chargers to be able to accomplish what they need to. So thank you for going there.
Yeah, if I may also, I think once you realize that once you gain that confidence in having your authentic voice, like Lisa said, she was able to speak up in ways that she wasn't before, and just show up as herself more authentically than before. Showing up, guys, we know is more than half the battle, but taking it to another level, I have a background working in conflict resolution, and in positions where I was absolutely the minority in every single way. I would be an ethnic minority, a racial minority, a gender minority, you name it. I have been the speck in the crowd and stand alone. And for those of you who are out there professionally and you want to attract your tribe, you're putting yourself out there in a position of vulnerability, right? But when you do so authentically, people are able to see who you are. And so I was able to stand in front of large groups of people countless times who were facing situations I had never lived through, who were facing systemic discrimination, who were facing, some of them had fled from their country, they were facing extermination. And I was able to stand there and be of service and of value. And how was I, who had never lived through what they've lived through, able to attract them and instantly build a rapport where they could know, like, and trust in the process that I offered to help guide them? Authenticity. They saw my heart, they saw my intention, they saw that I believed in them, they saw that I wouldn't leave them. And you can say anything you want to say, they will feel what's true. They will hear your words and discard them if you do not mean them. They know. People are not idiots. We have an incredible emotional intelligence if we choose to use them. But this stuff is real. It enabled me to live successfully, to build a communications consulting practice in Pakistan. Right? So this is real stuff. This is powerful stuff. You are able to attract people across language boundaries, across religious boundaries, across race, sexual orientation, gender, disability, religion, you name it. There's no boundary you cannot cross when you learn to show up authentically. And I know that we're very nice here and we talk a very nice game, but let me tell you, this is powerful stuff. This is life-changing, world-changing. And the leaders that you follow are the ones that are willing to put themselves out there and show up courageously and authentically in the world. So I just didn't want us to downplay the magnitude of what we're saying. And because some of you out there, this is your mission, right? You have things you want to do. So this is about the power invested in you.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. One of the questions I type in the chat, and I'm curious for those people who are here, is, where's an area where you want to be more authentic in your life? Is that in your personal relationships? Is that in your love relationship? Is that at your job? Is that in emails you write or text messages you send or phone calls you make? Where's an area where you want to be more authentic? If you want to type that in the chat, or you can actually raise your hand here and actually share that with us live. We'd love to kind of hear your, where you want to move, because we don't want this just to be a bunch of information. We also want there to be actions that you follow up with on this. And is there a space where you want to be more authentic than you are now? Hey, Sandra.
Hey, so this is a half answer to that, which Suzanne started off using, I think, pretty early on, the idea of it's a balance between playing it safe versus being authentic. And I don't want to be more authentic if it's going to be too dangerous to be so. So it seems like I'm pretty authentic when it's safe to do so. And when it's not, I'm not. So I'm not sure that I could do that balance any better. But I'll ask that as a question. Like, is there a way to sort of escape that trade-off and be authentic even in situations where it might not be safe without endangering yourself? Is there some bit I'm missing there?
So Suzanne, did you want to address that?
Yeah, I think you're probably not going to like my answer. Sometimes you have to just put it out there and risk it and pray to the forces that be. But I think the most important measure, Sandra, will be your internal compass, that if you feel any sense of regret, or if you think you will feel any sense of regret for not putting it out there, for not speaking up, the line, it's better to be safe than sorry. I completely disagree. And I don't know any change makers that have ever benefited from that phrase. So for me, I would say, use that internal guidance that you have, especially that's also part of your discernment of what's a safe environment or not. I worked at a federal agency where my political affiliation would have resulted in probably some persecution and leading to termination pretty quickly. I had to hide my political beliefs, right? So that took discernment to understand, was that something I felt strongly enough about that I need to speak up, to say. And at that point it wasn't, because the mission of the agency was something I believed in. I could still work effectively within those parameters and stay aligned with my beliefs. So for me, that was the discernment, and to really unpack it and analyze that. That's super important. But for me, it is a question of, am I going to regret this? Am I going to feel like I never spoke up? Am I going to miss a chance to impact somebody's life or to right a wrong just by playing it safe? And so for me, it's that moral compass guide. Does that make sense?
And how I would respond with this, because I know that Suzanne is the person who wants to jump off the cliff like right now and just go. I'm kind of the other side of this. Is I see the comfort zone, and then there's the risky zone, and then there's the danger zone. We can stay in the safe zone, but where growth is actually in that risky but not dangerous. And kind of, yes, it is trusting your gut on this, and sometimes it is a half a step out into that risky zone, and then if you need to step back because there was a response to that. It is small experiments, not giant ones. So that's one of my tools. Is it is the small steps. It is that compound effect by taking one small step into that uncomfortable zone, but not dangerous. And then once that becomes comfortable, then you can expand the zone a little bit more into the uncomfortable zone. And then really kind of, as you're putting your personal truth out there, that is kind of what I'm talking about here, is that there's ways that I'm going to see the world that's different than you. There's ways I'm going to interact with the world that's different than you. And being able to trust that I can navigate the world based on my beliefs and my values in a way that serves where I want to be and not injure other people. So that's kind of the take that I do on this. Lisa, did you have something related?
You stole my answer. One of the best things I ever heard from one of my mentors was, outside of the comfort zone is a safety zone. And that changed my whole life. Again, realizing it wasn't just this black and white, it either is or it isn't, but there's the gradients like Michael was talking about. And the analogy she gave, in beautifully keeping with Suzanne's jumping off of bridges philosophy, was, okay, you think maybe you'd like to try skydiving, but you're really scared of that idea. So go to the local amusement park and ride one of those uppy downy, shoot 'em, drop 'em rides and see how you feel. If that feels okay, maybe go bungee jumping and see how that feels. So it was kind of this like extreme sport version of the steps we can take and the variations we can find in everyday life when it comes to taking chances.
Beautiful. Did that address what you were asking, Sandra? Awesome. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. So I kind of want to transition into this kind of next phase for us, is that, there are areas that we can step out. And it looks like Catherine has mentioned that she started writing, and that's helped her share your story. So thank you for telling us about that. I think that that's an awesome way to do that. It's a way to get your thoughts out. And it makes them sometimes more real when we write it out. So that's actually a great tool that I'm actually going to add to my list as well here, because we had a couple of things that we wanted to share with everyone. There's this other piece that I think that we've hinted at quite a bit. And I know that when we were kind of preparing for this, Lisa, you'd brought this up, is kind of that self-awareness piece. Do you want to go into that a little bit more with us?
Absolutely. The first step to finding and recognizing and becoming and sharing that authentic inner self is starting with the person in the mirror and looking at that person daily, multiple times a day, and checking in with them on how are we doing? How close are we to who we are inside? An example I gave to Michael and Suzanne when we were talking earlier this week was, I'm coming to terms with life as a plus size gal. I've gotten tired of the yo-yo dieting. I've gotten tired of the disappointment and the frustration. And now it's like, okay, where is our body? Where do we need to be healthy? And how do I shed these delusions of, oh, I can get skinnier, I can get slimmer, I can lose 40, 50, 60 pounds. I long ago accepted that what the BMI says I should be for my height is not realistic at all. But it is still something I struggle with, and I have a full-length mirror in my bathroom. So every time I get in and out of the shower, I'm faced with who I am physically and coming to terms with, where is this in relationship to where I want to be? How comfortable am I with this version of myself? And, one of my friends is a wedding photographer, and she posted the other day, "Dear potential clients, no, I cannot turn you into a size 4 in your photo, so please stop asking." And I commented, look, all I'm saying is you could take me from a size 18 to a size 12. I mean, I'm not talking, we don't need single digits here. But it was kind of an eye-opener for me when I made that wisecrack of like, yeah, it's not black and white. I'm not either a big girl or a skinny girl, but where on the spectrum do I need to be healthy and content and comfortable and confident in my own skin? And I would say finding your own voice and identity is harder than the physical. But I think the physical is one we can all probably relate to a lot more closely. Because I think we've all at some point looked in the mirror and not liked who we physically see there.
Thank you for that. I know I've had similar conversations this past week around the same thing. Is, it is this odd paradox of I accept where I am and I want to go here. And then always that last question is, am I willing to pay the price to go from here to there? So, but it does come from that. It does. I agree with you. It comes from that, starting with it is the and versus the but, precisely. And when you can come from, this is me, this is where I'm at right now, this is my best right now, I'm showing up with my best in this moment. My best will be different tomorrow. My best now is different than yesterday. It is kind of why I chose the name for my business that I did, is that my plan is that my best will be better tomorrow, that I will grow into a new version of best. I'm elevating that because the practices that I'm doing in between when I'm actually showing up for that test, that game, that conversation, that session, is through the practices that I do. And some of that practice is around, how do I find my voice in this? How do I find the thread that, following my intuition, my insight, my training, and helping others to get to where they truly want to be, and discerning where they truly want to be. And that then provides clarity on what are the steps is it going to take to get there. So did you have a tactic, a tool, a strategy that would actually help you, that you've used, that has helped you become more authentic?
I think we've talked about most of them, guys. And if you stay with me, just recall some of the conversation that we've had just this morning. We've talked about using your internal GPS, right? And having some reflection, that self-awareness. We've talked about that as well. But also we've talked about showing up. Lisa didn't, get better at her authentic voice just by talking to herself. She actually showed up for others. She actually put herself in a vulnerable position and stepped forward. So action, and, this keeps with my line of fire, whereas Michael's very blue, calm water, action, stepping into your authenticity and practicing your voice. It may not come easily. In fact, it may seem obtuse and like you're spitting out bricks. I've done that before. But if you keep going and keep putting it out there, you'll find that you develop your authentic voice. And it's almost like tapping in. Well, actually, it is very much the same as tapping into flow. And we've talked about flow in previous sessions that we've had, that mindset where you get into, where you're aligned and you're resonated and vibrating, you're able to concentrate, you are on message, on point. And the same happens when you learn to show up authentically. So there's a fluency and a native capacity. You're going to be more than capable in this space when you hit it, and you're going to feel like you hit your stride. So it really can feel, though, like spitting out bricks at first, and awkward, like bull in a china shop, knocking stuff down. and lots of misfires. Michael's talked about building his business, and he's also still in that process of developing his authentic voice that will attract his tribe, right? And he's figuring out who they are. And I would challenge him to say that you're figuring out who you are. And once you're done with that, they're going to find you super easy. So, you know, this is really almost like an externalization of our self-development, our self-growth, personal growth, right? It's just putting that on the outside so that others can see who we're becoming.
Absolutely. And I think that that is great to kind of, you know, that next step is Lisa really talked about that self-reflection, that awareness of what's on the inside. And then we have the opportunity then to build the environment around us and even audit that environment around us so it matches that. And I know that there's been several times whenever it is that someone that I've been talking to for a while may leave and they may go away. And sometimes that hurts. And sometimes it's like, okay, so actually where I'm going, that energy doesn't resonate with me anymore. That person's message, that person's style, that person's values are not the same ones that I hold now. And I think it's important and to be aware that as we become more and discover and work towards that authentic self, the circle of people around you in your environment that you're in, I won't say as 100% guarantee, but 95% of that you may change. I know for me personally that the majority of the people that I talk to on a regular basis is new in the last 5 years. There's a few friends and a few people that I interact with that are from longer ago than that, but I would say that my core circle of people, one is Lisa, yes, but the last 5 years is where I've rebuilt that circle because I have rediscovered who I am. And as I'm actually projecting that out, different people are being drawn to that, and some people are being pushed away by that. And it is part of the process. It has been part of the healing for me in that.
Yeah, guys, it's super important to really have that, what I call situational awareness, evaluate your environment. This is a tool. You want to see if you're really showing up authentically, look at the people around you. If they don't align with who you are, if they are people that you are like, wow, I don't want this for my future. If they're engaging in if they have patterns and behaviors, if they treat people in a way that you wouldn't ever want to be treated, guys, red light, red light. So we have all these tools and most of them are built in. It's just learning how to use them. So definitely that situational awareness. Also, like I said, that feeling of like when you say something and you're like, did that come out of my mouth? Or you're in an environment and you're like, wow, this isn't me. That square peg in a round hole, right? These are the signs. This is the universe speaking to you. This is the power of redirection. So pay attention. Some of us get really stubborn and we're hell-bent on fitting in. And we find that we have to, in the square people, they're chopping off their legs and arms to try to become a round peg. You should never have to sacrifice who you are. It's who you are that's going to make you great. So those are just some of the other tools I was thinking. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. So I know that we're getting ready to wrap up, but we also like to open up the floor to anyone who wants to either ask a question, provide some insight, some of the lessons that you've learned around this subject. So if anyone has anything else that they want to add, please feel free to either raise your hand, unmute your mic. We'd love to have you come up and join this conversation more with us.
I would love to hear if there are any questions about the hows and the how longs and the what ifs that we've touched on, because I know it's been a lot of stories, a lot of sharing. And I would welcome any follow-up questions or how-to questions that other folks may have.
Okay, I think that's it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for today. If you're actually watching this either live or recorded later, we really appreciate any feedback that you have for us. It's actually one of the things that I believe allows us to get better at what we're doing. And we're open to all the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. It really helps us to learn and grow. And we got some feedback on our last session that felt a little bit harsh to me, but it's certainly something that I took to heart on how we can make these sessions better to help serve you as the listener, and it can also help us grow and be better ourselves. So just to kind of wrap up, my name is Michael Danklas of Elevate Your Best. We also have Suzanne Buchanan of Carrot Communications and Lisa Dorr joining us. If you want to connect with any of the people that are on this session, we will be putting that in the notes here, so you can actually follow up with them if you have any further questions. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Much love. See you soon. Bye.